Remind me when we're done.
You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game. Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight? Thanks for joining us. If you, let's see here, that's that, and some of my buttons have disappeared. Well, if you all could be so kind, please do share the social I put out there with the MLSFI account right now, and for my little quick share buttons. Oh, there we go. Boink, boink. Nope, that did not work at all. We're gonna try to reset that real quick. See if I can get these little share links going. Nope, that's the wrong button. I was all, believe it or not, everybody, welcome. I was all ready to go, and all of a sudden it just went crazy. My house lost power today while I was at work. That's what I found out. So I'm discovering as I'm trying to get everything ready, the bits and pieces of technology that I thought were ready to go that are not ready to go.
Sure.
But we'll do this the old-fashioned way if we have to. The old-fashioned way it is. So let's get the Twitter going. With the @MLS Fantasy. It's good to have the MLS Fantasy Twitter back, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
3 review episode. Live chat. The upcoming round. So I'm obsessed with calling it a round instead of a week because I know every now and then the week's kind of...
I prefer that because sometimes it's not a week.
I know,
It
right?
is a round, yeah.
And so
I'm an English major. I'm tic-tacky like that.
Just obsessed with doing it that way. All right, so there is the social out from the fantasy account, from the MLSFI account, and the MLS Fantasy Boss account. It is out there on Discord. Thank you so much. If you could please, if you are out there in social, please share that to help just get it all out for everyone else who may want to join or discover our podcast project here. And of course, if you are watching on YouTube for the first time, or not your first time, but you're enjoying what you are hearing, then please do like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon, as every other YouTube streamer says. Mostly we just like to be able to make sure you know that we're at live and that it helps with the metrics to get it up there some. So that's what we're doing. For those of you who were with us last week, so sorry that we went so long. We just kind of got carried away. Not our intention. We're trying to keep it more tight this week, at least for the recording of the podcast part. But if people want to hang around and chat some, I mean, for those of you who can hang around and chat, I think we're okay with that. But the official recordings will stop. But I think that's good. We got a great 23 people streaming with us right now. Hello, all. And I think that's enough time, so we are going to get started. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of Round 3 of the 2022 season. This episode is brought to you by the Ari, a.k.a. scrubbing Vela for a 9-point bench player and coming out on top. Actually, brought to you by the amazing Patreon supporters of the MLS Fantasy Insider. It's because of you and your support that we're able to keep this project going. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Reed Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partners in fantasy, Blaine Riffle and Ashley Savage. We'd also like to welcome our special guest, Jason Morris, who is one of our top patron supporters, and one of the longest ones, too, I think, Jason.
I don't know. You're keeping tabs on that. So
I do. I have a report I could run. Exactly.
Like 2016, I think, maybe 2017. I don't know.
It's back there. It's back there. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I'm good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here.
You're last this time, Blaine. You get to say
Yeah.
last.
You didn't lead me in like normal, so I didn't get to say
Well, I
anything.
didn't. I mean, we have Jason here, and he's been there with us
Right,
for so
right.
long that it just is what it is. So let's, like I said, we're trying to keep things moving. For those of you listening, sorry for the two-part episode last time. We did have a lot to talk about, but I do want to respect all of your time and the feedback that we got, which I appreciate. We do want to keep this focused on the content you want, which I know is player focused. So we are going to just keep going and jump right into the content and the reviews that you guys need for this previous round. So guys, let's talk about our scores from this past round and what we learned. Jason, start with you.
Let's see. What did I learn? I had my score was garbage, so I was really disappointed with that. I think I wound up with, what did I get? I think I had 81 points, and I think I felt like I picked some of the right teams, but some of the wrong players. So that was kind of my big thing. But my team value was up, just I kept 107.1. So I'm happy with that. What did I learn? Let's see. I guess for me, the big thing that I'm going to take away, and I've had other things, but in the interest of time, the last time, Reed, I remember the last time that I was on the show, like last season, it was like a week where all of like Skylar Redpath's like top 10 strikers didn't hit at all, and I made a mention of that. And so I would say the same thing. I did a quick scan of all of his like top 10 strikers, like the high profile strikers, and I think it was like 1 assist, maybe 1 goal, and a couple of bonus points. So my takeaway is I'm not going to spend any money on high profile strikers, at least to the end of like this little bracket of the Champions League, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm putting all the money in the midfield. That's my
Ashley,
takeaway.
how'd you do?
Yeah, I did better than week 1. I still also felt like I had a couple of misses, but I scored a 101. I was 85 overall for the week, which is good. I moved up to 108 in value, and I won all my head-to-heads. So I really can't complain. I stuck with some of my gut picks instead of some of the, I would say, chalk picks or things I saw a lot of other people doing. I did not have Morgan or Klamala. So I got there without Red Bull. So yeah, I feel pretty good, but I second guess myself on a couple. And I mean, Vela hit all of us by surprise, so I'm not too mad about that one. So yeah, pretty decent for me.
Blaine, what about you?
Yeah, I got the worst score, I think, of the group. I got an 80. Not overly happy with that, but I still got 3.7 in a value rise. And even Vela and Dominguez, who I took over Driussi and a better striker, I mean, they still went up in value even with the terrible games. So that's part of playing the value system. Sometimes you just pile on to somebody like I did that's had a good run, and you hope their average carries you through. Big thing I learned this week is sometimes tinkering is okay. I was borderline on putting Klamala in. I wasn't 100% sold on Estrada. Just didn't know where I was going, so probably should have put him in. I did have Zeller-Ion, though, and I know that's a name that's been kind of missing on a lot of rosters. I know he's been playing really well. But I did have him. I just set him and forget him to start the season. I had that feeling, and so he's a name that just I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about him, but he's quietly been just spectacular.
Yeah, as for myself, I did okay. I'm happy. I got 90 points. I won a lot of my head-to-heads, not all of my head-to-heads. Had a couple of flubs, but overall, like I said, I was pretty pleased with the results. The big miss for me is instead of doing Zella, I went back and forth between Ortiz and Zella, and I ended up going with Charlotte, mostly because I just wanted some. I thought Zella was kind of chalky, and I totally got going with him against San Jose. But I kind of wanted to see about some other options, especially some home options. Ended up going with Vasquez and Ortiz. Didn't hit for me like I really want, but I had that heel captain. Ooh, love me that. And then I had Bai and Ndenbe coming off of the bench, and then Edwards Jr. So good. My bench points really came through for me today. Up 3-some million with my team value. I forgot to write down what I had last time, but another 3-point-something. So I'm at 107.1. with team value. So I think you're leading the value race, Ashley, right now. So, but yeah, no, and I can definitely feel it. It's still never enough because my current draft of my
I don't have enough right now.
Yeah, I'm like minus 4 million of what I want, and I'm like,
yeah,
grr.
yeah.
So fantastic there. So we've got some takeaways from Blaine, some from Jason. I know just some general takeaways I'm sure we've all seen from this past round. I think it's safe to say we're all targeting Austin offense at this point, especially if the matchups are good. We have questions about defensive reliability about Philadelphia, which is a little bit weird from some of the performances they had last year. And we've just all added Lewis Morgan to our short list here at the Red Bulls. That was like, forget about Kaká and what that was supposed to be. Going on. This was a good time for the Red Bulls, and he was doing some fantastic things last week as well. So, what other kind of key fantasy takeaways do you guys just want to make sure we touch on before we move on? Anything else from you, Blaine?
Yeah, I've been saying it all year. Toronto's really bad right now. And I kind of predicted that to start the season, and I don't see that turning around anytime soon. And then I had two quick, fast ones. I'm curious about how New England's actually shaping up this year. They've gotten the results. The heel has scored, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not convinced with their on-field play. I don't know that they've had the toughest of schedules yet, with just 2 games, and they're not really convincing me that I want to be going any deeper than heel and maybe a defender. So I'm really worried about what's going to happen when they start running into some stronger teams. And I'm not sold on New England at this moment, and that's crazy for the defending Supporters Shield winners.
Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, I talked about it in week 1, and I kind of just bit my tongue because everyone else was so on it. But I think we can just kind of lay off the Gressel hype for a minute. I understand the reasoning behind it. I think that it'll happen eventually, but right now in the system that they're playing, and then I didn't say if he got hurt or why he got subbed out. He's not producing more points than the rest of the defense, especially Brad Smith. Andy Nahar's comparable. I saw some people captaining him certain weeks. I just think we need to cool it with that hype for just a little bit. And like I said, I kind of didn't get it. I remember Isaac kind of like talking me into it and going into that week being like, well, literally everyone has him. I have to have him, but I don't agree. I think you could do it for cheaper. Also, just don't pick up the Sounders in just any capacity. I can't even speak to what's going on right now. And from the fantasy perspective, guys that should be producing, aren't producing. I think Obed Vargas is leading the midfield in points right now, and I don't even think any of you know who he is. So it's kind of a nightmare over there from the fantasy perspective. So even with the home game this weekend, they have CCL midweek. Just don't even look at them.
Actually, I have the Discord answer for Gressel right now, and it's because Brad Smith is taking a lot more set pieces.
Right. No, I don't care what the reason is. My point is just don't get so obsessed with him. Yeah. He's so expensive, and he's producing the same or less points.
Well, the initial hype was because everybody assumed he was going to be on all set pieces like he was, and he's not.
But he wasn't in preseason, and I said that, and everyone was like, no.
And there was some question, too, about Brad Smith starting consistently. So, but
yeah,
we've seen that. We've got Jason, our DC guy, here. So is there anything you want to put the final word in on Gressel or Smith, or anything else you want to add for takeaways?
I mean, my takeaway was the 2 things that I had no DC United stuff. It was going to be
go for it.
Lots of substitutes scoring goals this week and last week. Yeah. And I think what is it Isaac, the person who has the never bet for against San Jose theorem? The corollary is never bet for or against Francisco Calvo, because you might win a red card and you might
get a brace.
You might win a brace inside of 3 minutes. So
That's tough. Well, that's what we have for our key fantasy takeaways. Of course, I know there's definitely more. We've seen them in chat. Feel free to join us if you're listening to us in the podcast for one of our live streams. There is conversation that goes on in chat. But those are just some of the key takeaways that we think are important going into round 3, which we're going to be talking about in a second after we have a quick housekeeping update. Oh, shame. My little quick links. I'm going to have to work on the stream deck again. All right. Let's talk quick housekeeping before we get on to breaking down when this game week actually starts. I'm going to be touching on our Classic League and head-to-head Discord and Patreon leagues. Not every week, just every so often for updates, but we are going to update you on the MLS Fantasy Insider Experts League. Pretty tough games again as usual. I was joking with Jason before the show started that I think I've inadvertently, or I should have known from the beginning anyway, put together a couple of the toughest leagues in this game, the pro rel leagues that we have in this fantasy experts league from MLSFI. But Ryan Anderson of Lineup IQ is still on top by points, and we only have 6 teams with a score or a record of 2-0-0, so it's whittling down pretty quick. Heading over to the Pro Rel update, the Champions League, FC Bird Turgler still on top by points. And in that, only 8 teams have a record of 2-0-0. Ashley, what about the Veterans League?
Veterans League is, I think this is a new one. A new team this week is Almeida's Vibes FC, which I'm here for that name. Firestone, and they have 184 points.
It's probably Ted Firestone, one of our patrons.
Yep. So that's a new name from last week. I mean, it was week 1, but still. So yeah.
And then Blaine, the Development League.
Yeah, FC Red Bull Green Mountain is still on top, and we're down to 10 2-0 teams, or 2-0-0 teams so far. So holding on, the top end's a little heavier than the other leagues, it looks like. But this is Development League, so anything can happen.
And it's development just because I needed to have a name for the third tier. You guys who are playing are still awesome. We got a lot of patrons in there, a few people from the community, and we've got a huge waiting list that may just become a 4th tier next year, if depending on the rotation of this. But very, very competitive leagues right here. But let's talk about round 3 now. So round 3 starts Saturday, March 12th. At 1:00 p.m. with New York City versus Philadelphia. So Saturday, March 12th. There are no double game week teams. It's going to be 2 or 3 more. I think it's maybe round 6 before we see a DGW 5 or 6. It's coming up, but not for a while.
Should I throw in some teams that are in Champions League this week, though, as that is potentially a double?
Yeah. Go ahead. Who do we need to think about the rotation risk?
So NYCFC and Seattle both play on Tuesday, and then Red Bull and Montreal both play on Wednesday. Seattle's is a home game. NYCFC's is as well. New England's is a home game. Montreal is down at Azteca. So only one road team for Champions League this week, which is Montreal. Everybody else is at home, but still playing CCL midweek.
There we go. So there's no traditional double game weeks this week, but yes, definitely keep CCL in. That I think will factor in heavily to a lot of the player picks this week. And of course, since everyone's playing, no bye teams. I would recommend looking at those later games. Charlotte, Minnesota have some good 4.0 options you can slide in to your teams to be able to make your switcheroos and keeperoos work, depending on what you're working with. Other than that, Blaine, going to kick it over to you for the injury report, courtesy of Ranchinator. Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler hit me up with the list this morning, and we've been updating it a little bit all day. He did most of the work on this. Got some good news. It looks like Brian White is back. Came in off the bench, so that's always huge. Uri, who I think Tyler gave me a nice pronunciation, so Reed, you want to take this one on? It's Uwa. That's Philly's new striker.
No, I'm going to ignore it so that I can butcher it later, which is what the people want.
Yeah, it's what we expect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
First appearance, and he looked pretty good. Quite a few red cards this week. Nyman picked one up. Montiero picked one up with San Jose. Carranza with Philly got one. Miles Robinson down in Atlanta, and then Claudio Bravo for Portland all picked up red cards. And then the injury list is longer than we want it to be at this time of the year. Looks like Kessler for New England re-injured his hamstring in that game and came off early. Ozzy Alonso has been listed as a heart condition, so definitely worried about him there. Yeah, that's what's coming out right now.
Wow. Sorry, I hadn't heard that. Please continue.
Yeah, that could be a long time injury. Gray, I think, is New York City, picked up an injury. Fragapane's out. Wilson, Sissoko, Gressel's got a potential injury with the early sub. Jason shaking his head that we've got that, or nodding his head that we've got
Yeah,
it.
I haven't seen a detailed report or anything, but I watched the game. As far as I know, that's where he got subbed out. But I don't know how bad it is.
Victor Vasquez is on this list as a potential hammy or an ACL, which don't know how bad that is, but if you're ever even thinking ACL, that's going to be really bad.
At his age, too.
Yeah, I mean, and then LAFC picked up 3 in their game. Vela was a precautionary sub. Don't know how long that'll be. And then Palacios and Franco Escobar both picked up injuries and came out early, which really decimates that defense. So just keep an eye on those guys. I know some of these guys may or may not be gone this weekend, but definitely worried about some of these.
And of course, if you're interested in keeping up with all of these injury updates, you can head over to the MLS Fantasy and MLS Fantasy Boss Discord community over on the side. It's free to join, and we have a fantasy tools section where you can find Stickied, this mega reference pinned right at the top. So head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord channel. The easy way to join that is to go to MLSFantasyBoss.com, and we have a Discord. Join our Discord link right there in the menu bar. So it's fun, it's free, it's an amazing community. I recommend joining.
I finally got around to joining. It's a little overwhelming.
Get in there.
I'll try and pay more close attention.
We got a lot of people in a lot of different places to chat, so it's active all year round. I mean, for real, if you haven't been there, I'm not just blustering when I say some of the game's top players are in this Discord. They legitimately are, and they're here to help you who are listening to this podcast now, who are watching the stream later. It's what this community is all about, is help and fun, and so I just encourage you to check it out. But I know what y'all came here for. Y'all came here to listen to the player picks that we have for round 3, and that's what we're going to get into in just a moment. And by just a moment, I mean pause for social while I send out the social to at least let people know that we're getting ready to talk tips or player picks. So if they've been waiting, they can do that now. Because that's what the people want. All right, let's talk player targets. Blah. Oh my gosh. I know. I'm trying to. Let's try this. Cut. Quick. Edit. This is what's going to happen. All right, let's talk player targets for round 3, starting as always with keepers, defenders, and clean sheet chances. If you guys want to work those in there, from looking over what's going on, it looks like the majority of us are working with some kind of New England Revolution keeperoo. I know we've been a little just focused on who is actually starting there, and so we're all kind of looking at that for the keeperoo, which makes it really, really simple because they play at 7:30, so you have options both ahead and after that, so it's a great pivot for your keeperoo. After that, everyone's kind of all over the place, so I'll let you guys touch on that. And then the defensive options are also just kind of scattered, so definitely some good options here. So Blaine, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about running solo keeper this week just because I want some big names and budget's an issue already. So I'm kind of waiting to see where my switcheroos fall. If my bench hits, I'll probably look at having a plan for a later keeper after the New England game. But right now I don't have anybody slotted in. I don't like any of the games with any of the cheaper options. And so I'm going to pass on it for now. Maybe Cornell in the last game if I can afford him and I need to go that route. But again, I'm hoping that my bench will hit, and I'm really hoping New England gets it because I've got one of my better clean sheet chances for the week. And on that, I'm going with Omar Gonzalez right away, 5.3 for New England. With Kessler's re-injury, he's the one that came in for him off the bench. I expect he's going to start, and you get a starting defender for under 5.5 on one of my favorite clean sheet teams for the week. It's a no-brainer pick right there. I'm not willing to just cheap out on this one because I didn't like all the options. So I've got Smith for DC right now. He's on a lot more set pieces. If Gressel is actually injured, that's going to only help a little bit more. I like the way they're playing. I like the way he's playing. And I think he's got some potential there. If it's not Smith, it's going to be somebody from Columbus, and they're another clean sheet shot. And then I'm toying with the idea of I want to see what New York City does in the midweek and see if there's any rotation. I don't mind a New York City defender here. Usually they're pretty steady. But I'm really wondering if I should go with Fowler and Baki in the game, just because I like that matchup with Miami. It's early that you can slot him on the bench. Uh, he's been putting up offensive numbers, scored another goal this weekend. Just it's hard to ignore somebody like that that's doing that, and he's pretty much guaranteed a price rise given his play so far. Maybe ride the hot hand while we've got it. He scored without Vela on the field, which is another big plus for him. So that's kind of where I'm looking at now. I'm not wanting to cheap out totally on this. I don't think it's quite the point where you want to sell out, and seen a lot of rotation at other positions, and I know defenders are pretty steady, and when you've got some really good bonus points, I think you're getting a better return on your investment than trying to min-max in the back and bring in more points elsewhere.
All right, Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, I also like New England. I'll say while I'm looking at Smith, Steven Birnbaum has the same amount of total points as him across the first 2 weeks, and he's a 500,000 less. I like your Omar Gonzalez shout for saving money, and I just want to throw that out there. If you're looking at DC, I think he might be a comparable option. I like Atlanta. That's something that Blaine didn't cover. I know Miles Robinson's out, but at home in their massive fan-filled stadium against Charlotte, who hasn't been able to score a goal yet, I just think it's something to definitely look at. They're one of the only Sunday games, though, and I do always kind of hesitate to load up too heavy on one of the last 2 games, especially when they're a whole day away, or whole day different. And then I also think that, and hear me out, that Orlando might be a decent look for defense this week. Again, I always hate to say it to Reed's face, but because Cincinnati's coming into town, I do kind of think that Orlando defense is worth a shout. And then I actually like Columbus, who's someone that I think Blaine said is kind of on the bubble for him. But I like Columbus at home against Toronto. Yes, they're scoring, but I think at Columbus, I just feel pretty good about what that defense can do, how that midfield can hold them. I'd like to see the Toronto lineup, but if there's nothing there that drastically frightens me, I think that playing a Columbus defender is something I'll do this week for sure.
I totally get the Cincinnati hate. It was heartbreaking. I thought we were at least going to get a draw against you guys, Jason. But I will say I got a new fun little thing here. I got off of eBay 2021 inaugural season scarf.
Nice.
So I got that to add to my collection behind it. People have cool scarves. Let me know. Hit me up in my DMs. I'm always looking for something cool to add to the collection. But bit of a tangent. Blaine's turned into a cat apparently. Jason,
I was going to ask if Blaine had turned into a cat.
Yeah, he did.
Let's see. I right now at this point, I'm gonna do a keeperoo, so it's whoever New England has, and then Brad Guzan. Like not so much, mostly because I'm just putting my money elsewhere, so he seemed less expensive. Defenders that I've got are what have I got right now? So again, less expensive kind of stuff. I'm also still trying to build my team value, so I haven't put any scrubs in this lineup. I just tried to see what I could do with filling out every spot on the roster with people that I think are going to start. So I've got Estevez from Colorado. I have Schlegel from Orlando, McGraw from Portland, and I've got Dupuis from the Galaxy, and then this guy Holt from RSL. So I've had Holt like the last couple of weeks. I think they're not scoring any goals, but it's Pablo Mastriani, so I think he's going to be kind of a defense first thing. And I don't know, like my take on this, the Chicago DC game. These are 2 teams. Chicago has scored no goals in the first 2 games of the season. They have also not allowed any goals. DC has not allowed any goals. Every goal they've scored has been, from my perspective, not earned. They've been flubs. They've been penalty kicks. Cameron, that was a really hard PK to have to give up. Reed, it was kind of handball, kind of not really. I could have gone either way on that. So, yeah, I really think, I don't know, I think something has to give in that game, or it's just going to be terrible weather, raining, cold, and it's just an ugly game at 0-0. But I'm not totally convinced of that. So those are that's where I would go.
Yeah, great takeaways. I will add, because Blaine touched on this real quick before we move on to midfielders, if you're looking for some value gain, if you feel you're a little bit behind the curve right now, this is the great opportunity. You can find some of these guys that are green positive for the season. Some of the underperforming guys, not underperforming, the low price guys like Keller, like Ndembe over there at Sporting Kansas City. These guys have gotten 2 shutouts or not, maybe not shutouts, but they've gotten some high scores for their point value these last couple of games. They're likely going to rise regardless of what happens in this round 3. So if you want some points, these are great bench options, some great Aru options to help fill out your team. If you need to get some points to help build your value, this is a good place to look at that. I mean, same thing with Fall, which is going to be a more expensive take. Maybe someone like Brandon Bai. Those are guys who are probably going to be moving up anyway. So if you need some of that, just check out some of these scores, a 3-week average. A lot of these guys who are lower in value, particularly, who have gotten clean sheets or some good bonus point production, likely going to rise anyway. Maybe not the whole 0.5, but you probably get at least maybe a 0.2 to 0.3 out of some of these guys if you're a little behind. So keep that in mind when you're making some of these picks if you're on the fence.
Hey, Reed, I would say too in the chat, there's somebody who put in that Harry L for Philly started over Mbazo last week. So that is something to keep an eye on. And then I could be wrong about Schlegel starting regularly for Orlando. There may be somebody else in there. If I had the money, I might take Ruan instead. But I have to.
Schlegel didn't start week 1, but he did. Okay. He did start last week, so I think that's definitely a roster.
Did he start because was it Roussel? One of their other guys had a red card.
Picked up the red card. That's why Schlegel started. Schlegel's the backup for Antonio Carlos.
There we go. He's back now.
All right. Okay. Then I retract my Schlegel. I'll find somebody else.
You can find some good ones there. Good options. Well, let's move on to our midfielder options. I think it goes without saying after a couple of really strong performances, everyone's looking at Zelarayan right now. So he's an easy add. Carlos Gil is another one that's very. I'm doing it again. I'm saying Gil, and I know it's not Gil. Carlos Heel is back on. If there's questions from Blaine's point of view of New England, as long as Heel's making those bonus points, I don't think people are really caring. And so he is, of course, another quick add. And Morgan, another one that's, I think, on the short list for many people, maybe automatically added to their team with that home game they have coming up, even though it's the last game of the round. Then a few other options. Who else are you all looking at? Ashley.
Yeah, week 1, I talked myself out of Druisi. I'm saying it wrong. How do we say it? Dreusi? Help, guys.
Dreusi, maybe? I don't know.
I think it's Dreusi.
Okay. I talked myself out of him just from the price perspective, and because I also really liked what Discord was saying about playing Cincinnati. They tend to do more of crossing the ball in. So Fagundes, that pickup made sense. But I committed to what I'd had a gut about and picked him up this past week instead of Dominguez, who was so chalky. He doesn't replicate those types of scores. I didn't think going with him would be beneficial. Diego Fagundes is kind of like a soft spot one for me. I really like Diego Fagundes, so I always want to pick him up, but he doesn't always produce. I went with Druisi. Obviously didn't regret it. I think he was like the 3rd highest pointed player in fantasy this week. I honestly think I will roll with him on the road in Portland. I think we're going to see a different Austin this week. Let's make that clear. They're not going to put up 5 goals in Portland. And if they are, I'll eat this hat. It's my husband's, so I won't care. Next week, I don't think they're going to score 5 goals in Portland. But I do think with Bravo out, with the center back issues that Portland already has as far as depth, neither of those guys are their who's supposed to start. I think that Austin is going to continue to at least put a couple in, and I see it going through this 10. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of any other Austin attackers, but for me in the midfield, I think the points for Austin this week are going to come through him. So he's expensive at 10, but I still want him. And then hear me out. I think when someone scores a hat trick, we all instinctually pick them up the next week in hopes that we can recreate that magic again, right? But Frankie Amaya, who's only 7 million, only has 9 less points than Lewis Morgan without the hat trick. And I think if you factor that in, I'm not saying Lewis Morgan isn't going to produce this week, especially with who they're playing in, that it's a home game. But I think if you're trying to still spread money around and you want the price rise, which you're going to get out of Frankie Amaya, I think he's worth looking at because only 9 points behind someone who has a hat trick is pretty good. 2nd highest pointed midfielder, not on a lot of people's radar for fantasy going into the season. So that might be something that I do to try to spread some of that money around, but also maintain that price rise. And I'm not saying both, just for the record. Please don't pick up that. I'm saying I might go Amaya over Morgan.
Now, let me clarify right now. I've seen a couple of comments in chat for those of you listening as well. Any player that we're mentioning, like Heel or anyone, I'm sure we're going to get to some New York City guys coming up, that is playing in CCL. Yes, absolutely. Those players are rotation risks. Those are players. We already covered the CCL teams in the previous section, so rewind back to see that. Those are players you should be keeping an eye on and have a backup for just in case. So yes, that if it's not said specifically, I'm going to say it now that all those CCL teams, those guys are all caveats of check and beware of rotations. All right, Jason, did we cover you? Midfielder. Yes,
No,
Jason.
yeah, I'll go. Let's see. So yeah, Ashley, thanks for the New York Red Bulls thing. I've got Lewis Morgan right now. I might, I had Omir Fernandez last week, but Amaya's a good shout. I kind of like cast him off because I didn't particularly care for his attitude. Like I felt like he had a terrible attitude. It's like, a player, but I don't know. He's a young kid, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's not about that. So yeah, I've got Lewis Morgan right now. I've got Zelleran. I put all my money in the midfield basically. And this might change. I've got Driussi, although I'm not, as others have said, I'm not super sanguine on their ability to go out and play really well at Portland. I have Yemi, the bicycle kick Chara. Might see what I can do there. That might go away. And then I have Shaqiri from Chicago. And in part, mostly really, it's because I have sunk costs. Like I tend to subscribe to the David Goss theorem where you don't really take a player right when they come into the league. But I want to take this guy, and he's been getting bonus points. So there's people in chat talking about it. His scores haven't been like off the board for his value, but it's a lot of it has been through bonus points. And I think there are probably other people in the chat who could talk a little bit more about DC United's shape and lineup and what it might look like without Gressel and without Moses Nyman. But my guess is Chicago may be able to accomplish some things in the middle of the field. And maybe, something's got to give, dude. This guy's like getting paid a lot of money. Maybe he'll do something. So that's who I have for my midfield. 5. Going to start 5 midfielders.
Okay, I love it. Blaine.
Yeah, I'm looking at trying to spend big in midfield, but I'm a little budget strapped, so I've got some other names in there. Driussi's definitely in there. I'm liking that more with the center back issues for Portland, and now Bravo's out. Like I don't think Austin is this good offensively. I know they're good. I know they're better than they were last year, but they've had a good run of games, and I think Portland is just another good run of games to run into here, given the injuries and the situation. And so it's really hard for me to drop somebody who's been hot like he has. If I were to drop him, I'm actually looking at Maxi Morales in that first game of the weekend. See the lineup, see what happens. I'm not 100% sold on Montreal's defense yet, and I think there's potential for quite a few points there out of New York City. It's one of those gut feeling. I want to kind of run that way. Early games have tended to pay off well for me, but right now I can't afford to put Maxi in, so I've been looking elsewhere. I'm on Team Fernandez with New York Red Bulls. I think he's got it. Amaya's got a couple more points, but Fernandez just seems to be picking up the bonus points a little more consistently. I like the way he's playing in that team. Just maybe going with my gut there and overlooking Amaya a little bit, but I think a little bit lower ceiling, a little bit higher floor. And then another name that I haven't seen hit, and I'm really curious. I think this is my entry point into Orlando. Is I want Facundo Torres this week for Cincinnati. 7.1. He's been looking pretty good. I think as soon as he breaks out, it's going to be a monster game. Doesn't quite have the average yet. He's up a little bit in value on the season. I think that game against Cincinnati is one of those we always want to pick on. I don't know where else to go without taking Pereira from Orlando, and I don't really want to burn premium money on him. So I'm looking at that next best thing, and I just don't quite trust the forwards. I want to go with somebody a little more steady, and looks like Torres right now. And he's looked dangerous so far. Just I haven't seen it come together, so that may be a flyer, but it's one I'm willing to take this week.
No, understandable. One name I saw in chat that I will agree that, yeah, it's one that I've looked at is Gazdag over at Philadelphia. Didn't have a great first game, did well last week, so not in my team, but someone who's definitely on my short list. So I will just add that as a quick name of someone you could consider. All right, let's move on to our forward options. The majority of us, I think all of us, have been looking at New York Red Bulls Kamala as the top target. But then after that, it kind of goes a little bit of everywhere. So, Jason, who are you looking at?
I spent all my money like in the midfield. So what I did was I put Kamala in, and then I went and just kind of like scrubbed way down to see what I could afford. So Shinishiki came up, and is it Jason, this guy from NYCFC?
Yeah.
He got some minutes last week. I think that probably maybe because they were rotating ahead of the CCL game. I don't know, but he's like $4.5 million. And I suspect maybe he'll see a few more minutes. So I'm off forwards. I don't want to spend any money on him. So I'd rather, see what comes up. I mean, I might, depending on what the budget looks like, maybe find somebody else from Colorado. Not Michael Barrios. We'll do that, Reed, but maybe, I don't even know if he's a forward in the game. But so maybe the other guy who scored, he did pretty well last week. The other guy.
Diego Rubio.
I was going to go Daniel Shallowy. That would be on Kansas City, though. So, yeah, those are the people I have.
Not bad. Ashley.
Yeah, besides Klamala, I'm really looking at Josef Martinez and Federico Higuain this week. Gonzalo Higuain. Federico Higuain would have to come out of retirement, and I wouldn't pick him up.
Hey, he would be a Cincinnati player then, because that's what we do.
Sure. Why not? I like Higuain this year. I know he hasn't got on the score sheet yet. I think he had an assist this past week, but he put up a bunch of bonus points at home in that first round. I think he got 7 without being on the score sheet. And then I know Josef just got minutes played, and Josef Martinez tends to be a goal or bust striker. He did have an assist or 2 week 1. But I just like them at home against Charlotte. Charlotte has shown me nothing. Even in a stadium full of 75,000 people, they couldn't get it done. And I just think that when you flip that and you go into Mercedes-Benz, I know Atlanta are missing some key people and they're going to be rotating around a little bit, but no one shows up more in that stadium than Josef Martinez. So they're both kind of equally expensive in that 9.5 range, which kind of prices me out of some of the midfield things I want to do. So I can't do all 3. I can't do Higuain, Kamala, and Josef. So I'll kind of have to pick. But like you said at the top of the show, Reed, LAFC are coming in with Blaine did, with a bunch of injuries defensively. They have a decent amount of depth with Hollingshead and stuff, but LAFC on the road, maybe without Carlos Vela, really seemed disjointed against a inferior, in my opinion, Portland team. Going into Miami, in that environment too, I just think that Higuain might be able to put something past them. So those are who I'm kind of looking at outside of our more chalky picks this week.
Blaine.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to a familiar face. I've got Zardes in there right now.
There it is.
It's second game of the week. It's an easy bench play to make. It could be Barry. I've got it listed in the sheet as a Columbus striker, but I've got Zardes in my roster. It's wishful thinking there that I really want to see him start. And if he starts, I like that against Toronto. Like I said, Toronto has been bad, like really bad. And I think the way this Columbus team is playing, there's goals to be had. Now, whether they all come from the midfield with Etienne Jr. hitting like he has been and Zella being Zella like normal, I don't know if it's going to be the forwards. But if it is the forward, I want to be involved in that. And so that's worth a bench play, even if they're both hovering around 8 million. Totally worth a bench play for me there. My third forward, I'm debating scrubbing it out again. I'm having trouble getting the money I want to put in everywhere, so I may have to go without a third forward to get a better midfield. But I am looking at Estrada versus Chicago for DC. If he's going to keep starting, he had that great first week. I think Chicago's a good matchup for him at home again. Depends on the shape there, so I'm a little nervous. And then I kind of like Arango without Vela out there. If that's the way it goes, no defense could change that a little bit. But I do kind of like Arango, and his price has fallen. He's now under 9. So he is a little bit of a risk if he doesn't score, but Miami has not been the strongest defensive team.
Their defense is garbage.
Yeah, I feel like he's got to hit at some point, and we're tempting fate. So it's whenever you want to jump on and hope that he hits for you before he bottoms out on price. I have a feeling this could be the game, and he did so much last year with Vela missing so much time. You bring Vela back in, he's kind of disappeared a little bit, so maybe take Vela out and see what happens. I'm curious there.
Remember, he didn't start week 1, so we're only taking that off of 45 minutes of soccer because Carlos Vela sat out the second half.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. We've seen it in chat. We're doing pretty good on time, so are you all? What does round 2 say about Vela and Chicharito? Those are 2 questions. I saw Chicharito mentioned a few times on Twitter, and we're getting Vela in chat right now. So anyone, Ashley, you were talking about Vela. What does this say going forward for them?
I mean, I think that, again, I said this earlier about Klamala. I think we all picked up Vela. I think he was owned by 31 or 32% of players this week. It's because he scored a hat trick. So you don't want to be the punk who didn't have Vela the second week after he scores a hat trick. So I understand the pickup, and he did look like the Carlos Vela of old, but also the Carlos Vela of old picked up random injuries unpredictably and messes up everybody's fantasy team. Like, this has happened before, so I don't know. I think if you see him in that lineup against that Miami defense, if it's, they have everybody that you would consider taking him for, wing presence and wing back presence and all that, I think you could pick him up, but he's expensive, and there's guys that I know are healthy and are going to start that I'd rather slot in to my lineup based on matchups. And Chicharito, I mean, he couldn't score at Charlotte. Gosh, did he have some opportunities? I don't know if you guys were able to watch that game, but he could have walked away with a brace for me. In that one, he just couldn't find the goal. Seattle's defense isn't terrible, but they're playing in Champions League this week. The statistics from the last week when everybody played Champions League was all those teams didn't. What was it, Blaine? It was like they got outscored 7-0 or something.
Yeah, 7-0
in week 1. So Seattle is a tough environment. He's scored there before, kind of in the same vein as Vela. For me, I don't like those 2 strikers better than some of the other people that we've named so far. I like them better than Miguel Berry or Estrada, but I don't like them better than some of the other people that we all kind of have as consensus picks. So I think that they're 2 players that, if given the right, people around them or the right lineups on the opposing team, could bury a goal or 2 this week. But it's so much of a question mark for me that I'm not factoring them in right now. That would be like a lineup based decision for me, probably leaning more towards the Chicharito side than anything else.
Yeah, I've been burned a few too many times now. Didn't have Vela week 1, had him week 2. Given his history, he had one amazing season of always captain Vela, and then he struggled to stay in the lineup. And that was kind of my hesitation with not taking him week 1. I never know how healthy he's going to be. I never know if he's 45 minutes fit, 60 minutes fit. If he picks up a knock, is he going to sub out? Like this, they said this was precautionary, but it seems like every injury he sustains is precautionary, and they sub him out immediately.
Yeah.
I'm getting frustrated with the LAFC ownership and coaching staff. You've got a guy like Vela. If he's healthy, you play him. He's already stated he's going to Europe, so you're not worried about next year with him. You play him if he's healthy, and if he doesn't want to play, you lock him out. I mean, I know that's harsh, but it's one of those. I think he might be protecting himself to go back to Europe too. And any slight knock, he's like, I don't feel it. I'm not going to go. I'm not comfortable. And he may be just taking the easy way out to get back to Europe, which is what he wants to do. And more power to him. I think it's better for the game when we don't have those super heavy hitters that are always hitting like that every week. I hate it when we have to take 3 or 4 guys because they're super hot, and that's one of them. But I might be done with Vela for the year.
Blaine? The year.
I saw
You're
it too.
making a
Ryan
definitive
Hollingshead
year.
is the best.
You can't say, don't make grand statements like this. The year, Blaine.
But
the month, maybe.
I avoided him last year and did okay without him when he started coming back because he's so unpredictable. He's one of those guys that you may get him for 45, you may get him for 60, you may get him for a hat trick.
So here's what I'll say to you with that, though. His minutes played is unpredictable. His production is not.
Yeah.
I mean, he produces when he plays, but yes, his fitness is unpredictable.
Yeah, that's true. It's so hard.
I've written it down. Written it down.
One thought: if
you wrote this down, good. Thank you, Reed. Let's. If Blaine says he's picked up Villa any other show this year, you that's bring right. That notepad back up.
Ryan Hollingshead, best defender. I'm done with Villa for the year. Got it right here. Right here.
Best left back over 4 years. That's what I said.
That is what he said.
Left back over 4 years. Okay.
My quick take on Chicharito, I did look at him this week. If Seattle is without Joao Paulo to start that game, I would be considering Chicharito. If Joao Paulo's in, I'm not taking him.
Joao Paulo will start. It's more of the defensive shuffle that they'll do in that back line because they're going in hard for CCL. So for the CCL lineup, you should see all the starters. I'm worried. Well, not worried. I suspect in the Galaxy game you might not. And if there's any rotation in that Seattle back line, I think Chicharito is a sneaky pick. But again, he's expensive. He's 9.7. And last week, for all the production I thought I watched in a game, he got 3 fucking points. 3 points in that game. And he just cannot pick up additional points unless he gets on the score sheet. But with a rotated Seattle back line, he could get on the score sheet for sure.
Yeah, actually, I watched that game too, that LA game, because I stupidly moved money around to pick Chicharito up. It was dumb.
No, I almost did too.
Yeah, and I watched the whole time, and I was like, what I saw was a guy who had a few chances, and then a lot of time he was really vexed at all of his other players for not providing him service. I mean, Raheem Edwards was going off the reservation, trying to dribble 4 guys.
Yeah, as a defender.
No shade on Raheem Edwards, generally speaking, but Chicharito was definitely vexed at the service. So I'm not. It's too boom and bust for me.
Yep.
And even if Vela is in the lineup this week, it's an away game. I'll save my money for something else.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, let's great aside, great question. Glad we got ahead time to talk about that. Let's wrap everything up with our captain picks for round 3. Blaine.
It's Zella, top point scorer on the season so far. I think maybe not top midfielder the first week. I think he wears hat tricks. He hasn't been the top midfielder, but he's just so consistent. And playing on a team that's really hot right now, got a great supporting cast that's finishing chances when he makes them. It's Zella right now, and until he cools off, I think it's going to be him for a while.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I almost talked myself into taking Shaqiri, but I'll go with Zella. I'll be happy if Shaqiri actually produces something other than bonus points. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and go with Zella. Yeah.
Ashley?
If there was no midweek CCL, I would really like Carlos Heel in this game because I think RSL is just looking to get torn apart by that man. But I think for me, it's going to be Zella this week too. I've had him in my team every week. And every week I've been like, I should have captained Zella, which never occurred to me as a realistic thing any of those 2 weeks. But every week I looked at his point production and was like, well, should have done that. So this week I'll do it and he'll probably get a 6.
I, too, am on Zellerian as my captain. Betting against that Toronto defense, I think Blaine already said it well right there. I like a lot of guys, but I like the form that he's in and the potential for that game. So happy to bet with that. That's probably going to be the chalk pick.
Can I say real quick with that, too? I think a lot of people are going to look at the offensive production of Morgan, Klamala, maybe even Frankie Meyer, but hopefully not, and want to captain them. But we get... As a hosting group, get nervous captaining someone in the very last game of the week. We all kind of tend to talk about how we shy away from that. I think if you want to do that, the data is there for it, but it always just it's almost like a superstition for me. It just freaks me out to captain someone in the very last game of the week and have that be what your points or what your round production is riding on. But I think some people might want to do that to kind of hit the hot hand, and I respect it. But I don't know if that's the best matchup to captain this week.
Yeah, when it works. And the rule that I tend to play by is I don't tend to go heavy with forwards, and I tend to go heavy with midfield, like Jason I know is doing this week as well. And that's because with the forwards, you pretty much have to have the goals, or maybe you might get an assist, you might get the bonus points, and not a lot of forwards get those points. But when you have midfielders, especially the creative midfielders, who are getting those assists, getting the key passes, just getting those bonus points, that's bread and butter. And that's stuff that you can rely upon for a solid captain, a decent captain, even if not. So that's why you'll hear us often say we're going with a midfielder, not a forward. But when they hit, man, you get one of those sweet hat trick captains. Ooh, I think I've managed to miss them all in all the years I played, because I just don't go for the forwards that often. But do it if you want to have fun. Go with one of those guys, because ultimately that's what it's all about. I know Tyler has shared with me a great comic that I am going to try to find very quickly here in the Discord, where it has two guys on a bus, and one of them looks all sad, and it says picking chalk and finishing top 10, and then somebody else is super happy looking out the window, and it says picking differentials and having fun. And that is a big element of what we believe as the hosts, what the community that we've cultivated is have fun. If you're not having fun playing this game, then why are you playing? Why are you playing? Have fun. That's what it's all about. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to us tonight. I think we did much better keeping on the time schedule that we shoot for every week, that we don't always hit. But I hope you guys still got some good content. Let me know your feedback. I got some DMs this last week. Please do send feedback to me at MLSFantasyBoss or at MLSFI. Let me know what you do or don't like about the show, what you'd like to hear more about or less about, or what we could refine more. Because we want to have a show that caters to what you want and find valuable as players of the official MLS Fantasy game. So let's wrap things up with our plug. Starting with you, Jason.
Man, I don't know. My girlfriend puts up with the fact that I have season tickets to DC United. I mean, she goes to games with me sometimes, but I appreciate having someone who, lets me play a lot of fantasy and like always check my phone whenever we're around on the weekend. So that's who I will shout out.
Ashley.
I'm gonna shout out. Hear me out. The app, because after 2 very long years as a Facebook loginer, I've finally regained access to the lineup fantasy feature in my MLS app. 2 years, you guys. Painful. Browser changing, running to a laptop when home. Finally, I can log back in and finally adjust fantasy from my phone, and it feels like a whole new world. So I will shout out the MLS app for finally doing what it always should have done.
Blaine.
Yeah, Reed, 1 point on your just having fun. You can play to win, or you can play to become a legend like Ari with his scrub of Vela this week that paid off. In 10 years, this community is not going to remember who won every year. Guys are going to remember it. But in 10 years, we're going to remember that Ari scrubbed Vela, and he got a win.
Well,
yeah, it's you play for the memories. But no, big shout out to Mike Kuhn, who is down the byline on Twitter. He's joined us from the Blue Testament to play in the Experts League. He and I are going head-to-head this week. He's another one of my Kansas City guys. And if anybody in here is looking for kind of up-to-date and quick hits on what SKC is doing and kind of everything that's going on, he is a great follow just to get regular updates on everything SKC related. And I'm so happy we've got some of these other media guys jumping in to play with us this year. So that's at Down the Byline from the Blue Testament. And just a fun guy to interact with on Twitter. He'll give you background on anything Kansas City sports. He's got soccer stats for every team and most appearances, whatever. He keeps track of everything. It's crazy in depth how far he goes. But he's playing with us, so want to wish him good luck this week. He's playing me. He's actually ahead of me in the Experts League standings right now, so we'll see how this goes.
And of course, I'm going to say that last week Blaine did a shout out to MLS Fantasy Night Owl, who's another content creator out there from across the pond, over in Scotland, actually. And one of the things that I'm going to be trying to do this week is have some people with other projects be on the show as guests to be able to talk. So I've reached out to a couple other people already for the show, people at the Undesignated Podcast is another one, and Undesignated Players Podcast. So if you have someone who creates MLS fantasy content who you think might enjoy being on the show or that people might like listening to, let me know, and we'll vet them, because we have encountered people over the years who aren't necessarily consistent or committed with putting out quality fantasy content, and so we try to vet some people before we bring them on the show. So if you do have people who you like and like to go to, let me know, let Blaine know, let Ashley know, let any of us know, and we'll see if we could get some people on the podcast, especially if we can help mix up the diversity that we have in the show with the ideas and everything. So let me know. Besides that, as always, I'm going to have to say MLSFantasyBoss.com and the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord community, absolutely amazing community, which I already plugged earlier, but you can hit up MLS Fantasy Boss for the articles that we have with the ELO numbers, Tyler's differential picks that are coming out there. Maybe I'll start looking out and try to find just some of these value people who start and just have a list of that pops up there. But the Discord player poll comes up as well, so check out for that over at the website. And then also, of course, the Patreon community. Jason's a member of that, been for a long time. Lots of cool things going on. I want to announce the winner of our scarf drawing for February. Our February scarf drawing is going to go to Rachel Burak, who is one of our actually, she's been a member for a couple of years now, 3 years now. And so you have for the February scarf, you are the winner. I'll be reaching out to you, Rachel, and we'll organize what team you like so I can get you a scarf sent to you. So congratulations to you. If you want to be able to get more things like that and see what other cool things that we have, I have the magnet voting for the logo coming up soon for the patrons. Head over to patreon.com/MLSFI and just check out how you can become a supporter of this podcast and our projects and just help keep this going. It's been such a pleasure to be involved with you guys, people like Jason. That's all that I have, and I guess as always, good luck.